complete our mission in space, and land on the runway back at the Kennedy Space Center a couple of weeks later. You might think that, but you'd have it all backwards. The real shuttle story happens between landing and launch. The real heroes are the people on the ground who put their hearts and souls into their jobs so that we can go to places like this and beyond. Without their dedication and attention to detail, the shuttle would never get off the ground. And when you're working in space, hundreds of miles above the planet, you never forget the thousands of hours the Kennedy Space Center ground crew puts in before the flight. As we make our re-entry, the shuttle team ground crew is back at the runway ready and waiting.
I, as a NASA convoy commander, lead an assortment of about 50 vehicles out to the runway, and we'll wait for the orbiter to touch down, instruct you to deploy, and it comes to a stop. At that time, the convoy will roll out to the vehicle. We'll descend upon it with our 50 vehicles. We'll check on the crew, make sure the crew can get out. We make sure that there's no leaking chemicals, toxic chemicals or vapors coming from the vehicle. We get it stabilized and put to bed, if you would, in the OPF at the end of the day.
In the orbiter processing facility, shuttle team workers will spend the next 4 to 6 months inspecting every inch of the orbiter for damage that may have occurred during the previous flight, making repairs, and getting the shuttle ready for its next mission.
The main job that our guys do here, we remove the engines from the vehicle, we bring the engine over to the main engine shop, we do some extensive inspections on the main engines, we remove and replace some of the components as required. We do leak checks, checkouts, and then we go reinstall the engine on the vehicle.
Since the shuttle was designed to be the world's first truly reusable spacecraft, every inch of the orbiter must be inspected and repaired. One of the most important features of the orbiter is the thermal protection system.
The basic block is made of silica fiber, insulates the aluminum skin underneath to 150 degrees to keep that aluminum from becoming soft. During re-entry, the hot plasma gas that flows around the orbiter gets upwards of 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit, and you need insulation material to keep the aluminum skin of the orbiter from actually melting.
The OPF is also the place where the old payload is removed and the payload bay is made ready for the next trip. You might think of the shuttle as a giant space truck designed to carry payloads into space, as well as scientific instruments used to gather data and conduct experiments in zero gravity.
We're fortunate in payloads to be able to have a new mission, a new customer, a new configuration of the orbiter, both mechanically and electrically each time. It's never a dull moment, so I simply love this.
Once the orbiter gets a thumbs up from the team at the OPF, it's off to the vehicle assembly building.
To assemble a space shuttle, we start out with the solid rocket motor segments, each of which weighs 250,000 pounds, and stack 4 on each side to make a complete booster. When that part's complete, we get an external tank, which itself weighs 66,000 pounds, and very carefully and precisely put that in between the boosters. And finally, we go to the hangar, get an orbiter, bring it into the VAB, lift it to the vertical position, and attach it to the side of the tank. And that makes up a complete shuttle that you're used to seeing on the launch pad. It's very fulfilling to realize you put together a very complex machine that's now flying through the air and carrying people into space.
Maybe you'll be lucky enough to see this shuttle on its way to the pad today. Traveling at speeds up to 1 mile an hour, the entire journey from the VAB to the launch pad can take up to 8 hours. The space shuttle arrives at the launch pad about a month before the actual launch date, and it's a very busy month. In the final days before launch, Kennedy Space Center's quality control teams pore over every inch of the shuttle, looking for any imperfection, knowing that even one loose screw could mean disaster on launch day. It's all an incredibly detailed process with multiple checks and rechecks performed right up until SRB ignition.
What we do is we manage all the test activities and try and make sure that everything happens so we can get to launch countdown. And we're the last people that say anything to the flight crew when they get on board. This is a team effort, so we like to tell them that everybody's thinking of them, and that tells them that, hey, we're getting ready to launch. Turn on your oxygen because we're going to be going for a ride.
At that moment, our lives are in the hands of the Kennedy Space Center ground crew and the thoroughness with which they've done their jobs.
The process starts out with a lot of activity and a murmur of noise. As the clock gets closer to zero, things quiet down, things settle down, and you can sense that people are more focused on what's about to happen. And there's a lot of energy and a lot of anticipation.
Silence falls over the team in the firing room as the clock ticks down, and months of hard work culminate in a few final seconds. And when the shuttle lifts off, every member of the Kennedy Space Center shuttle team goes with it in spirit.
Each one of them knows that they had to do their job well in order to enjoy that safe and successful mission. They're the most dedicated, greatest group of people I've ever had the pleasure to work with.
As you can see, it takes a lot more than rocket fuel to make the shuttle fly. It takes a team. And even more than that, it takes a nation of hearts, souls, and minds, all reaching for the stars.